Should Caitlin Clark accept Ice Cube's $5 million offer to join the Big Three? Welcome back to the Green Beans Go channel. It's your host, me, and today we're just going to kick it, guys. No fancy slideshows, no prep, really. Just me venting slightly because I was in a group chat with my buddies, and everybody was on the Caitlin Clark needs to take this deal train, and I'm like, I just don't think she does. And I'm going to walk you through my opinions on why. I don't speak for Caitlin. I don't speak for anybody but myself. And so her situation, her decision making, everything that this deal involves around her is ultimately up to her. But I'm going to say why, if I was Caitlin Clark, I would not accept this. The first thing that casuals, and I say casuals, I mean people on the sidelines, fans, people who argue that she should take this, the first thing they're going to say is $5 million is a lot of money. And I'm going to sigh. And I'm going to say, yes, it is. And I'm going to say it's a lot of money to you. Sorry, I'm fired up. I'm whacking my mic, okay? It's a lot of money to you. Someone who goes to a 9-to-5 and gets paid probably less than six figures a year, okay? Or around six figures, right? So $5 million is life-changing to you. The first thing you have to understand about Caitlin Clark is she's making over $3 million just in NIL deals right now. Just in name, image, likeness deals with Gatorade, State Farm, Nike, Xfinity. She is getting paid, all right? So when you already are a millionaire, getting offered $5 million is not something that you just jump on, right? There are other consequences. There are other factors that you have to consider. And I think as someone who is sitting after they work a 9-to-5 and they just made $200, $300 that day and they're exhausted, they're like, yeah, I'd take $5 million to go play basketball any day. That's not Caitlin Clark's situation. Okay, she's already wealthy. The $5 million is, I don't want to say negligible because it's still a big piece, a big piece of the pie, big slice of cake, but it's negligible compared to her trajectory. And what people are going to argue is, well, the salary in the WNBA is so small, it's so minuscule. I mean, I make as much as the WNBA players. Yes, okay, sure. On paper, yes. But there are a couple factors that go into that I think also need to be discussed. Sure, the salaries for WNBA players are low. They're average probably about $85K. That's an estimate, okay? The average NBA salary for WNBA players is $100,000, okay? So that is only going to grow. And I actually heard that the media rights deal for the WNBA is expiring in 2025, so in a year, which I think is fantastic timing for not only Caitlin Clark, but for every player in the WNBA who is going to be silently rooting for Caitlin Clark. How do WNBA players make more money? They drive more ticket sales. They drive more viewership. They drive more advertisers to want to pay to have their ads shown around WNBA coverage. That's it. Right. I know there's a lot of talk about equal pay and fair pay with the WNBA and the NBA, and I totally hear that. Okay. At the end of the day, it is a business deal. I don't find it to be just a black and white sexist issue. If the WNBA was watched, consumed, attended as heavily as the NBA, the players would make as much. Okay. So that's just the economics of it. Do I think that WNBA players should be compensated more fairly? Sure. But what does that mean for me? It means I need to start watching WNBA games. It means I need to go buy some tickets to WNBA games, right? If I am not supporting the WNBA, then talking about them getting paid more is a bit, there's some tension there, right? So what this media deal will mean is that in 2025, right, there's going to be potentially an influx of money based on someone who wants to come in and foot the bill and say, look, the WNBA is growing, right? We can afford to throw money up front because we're going to see it returned in X, Y, and Z. And this year, 2024, Caitlin Clark will potentially be going to the WNBA. And I think if Iowa wins their matchup this weekend and then wins against UConn and then wins potentially, possibly, most likely against South Carolina, she's going to go to the WNBA. Her job is done at Iowa. And I think that this is a massive time because we've seen Caitlin Clark change the college game. I mean, almost 180 degrees, in my opinion. Who was talking? I mean, when I was growing up, women's college basketball, the things I heard about it were UConn's dominance, mid 2000s. And that, I mean, that was it. That's all. And I was a sports addict, right? But that's what I heard. It was just UConn's dominance, and that was the end of WNBA women's college basketball talk. Caitlin Clark has shifted that. Okay, people know who Caitlin Clark is. People watch Caitlin Clark. The LSU Iowa game that was just played a few days ago was fantastic. I mean, for people who sit and say, make these comments in jest about women's sports, women's basketball. It's not entertaining. Let's lower the rim so they can dunk. Oh, it's all fundamentals. It's all. If you can find that game, watch it, because it was back and forth. It was competitive. Big shots were being made. It was awesome. And a lot of that was Caitlin Clark. And when she is going to go to the NBA, the WNBA, she is going to have leverage on a lot more than just hopefully the Indiana Fever, who I'm rooting for them to draft her. All right. She's going to have leverage on potentially the salaries of every WNBA player. If she gets to the WNBA and people start flocking to games, people start watching on TV, when their media rights deal expires at the end of this year, somebody's going to come in and put up a big check because of what Caitlin Clark has shown she can do for this league. So back to the big three. Why would I say no? Because the opportunity for her to change women's basketball, and this is not an exaggeration. I just explained why I think she can change women's basketball. The opportunity for her to change women's basketball is so large right now. The last thing that I personally, if I was her, would want to do was go muddy that, was go distract from that, was go risk injury from that by playing in a meme league with old NBA dudes, okay? That's no shade to them, all right? I understand that the big three has its thing, and it's clever, and it's creative, and it gives retired NBA players an opportunity to keep living out their dream. That's not a dig at the big three, but I don't think the big three is a spot for Caitlin because of the massive changes that she can make to the WNBA. And what you're going to say is, well, she could do both. Why doesn't she just go play there and then she go? And that's where we get into the weeds a little bit, and we start having to throw out some hypotheticals, and we start having to make some assumptions, which I don't love to do, but obviously she's going to risk injury by going to play with these guys. It's a rougher league. It's just a more physical, rougher league against bodies that she's not used to playing with. She is a large WNBA women's basketball player. Okay, she's 6 foot at a guard. That's pretty big. Okay, and when she goes into the big three, the guards are going to be 6'5". All right, and they're going to be stronger physically than her, and she's setting herself up for a bigger risk of injury. She has a chance to get injured every night. I understand that, but okay, that's why I said this is all hypothetical. Okay, so let's say she goes to the big three, she takes $5 million, and she gets hurt. And now she can't go to the WNBA and hopefully change the narrative of women's basketball and potentially set them on a path of higher pay, more fair pay, drawing more crowds at these games, which I'm just screaming. I'm fired up. I get fired up, man. Which I imagine it's her dream. So if I'm Caitlin Clark, because that's what this is about. It's about me pretending I'm Caitlin Clark. My dream is to play in the WNBA, sure, but it's also probably with the ability I have to change the legacy of women's basketball. We look at some of the legends in the NBA, and we think about who changed the National Basketball Association. And we go back to Larry Bird and Magic Johnson, and we jump to Kobe Bryant, who, Michael Jordan getting into shoes, right? And taking Nike to a different level of a company. Looking at Kobe and, the same thing about a legacy with a team and staying with a team for all those years. Like in the WNBA, forgive me, there aren't a ton of, I think of Sue Bird. I think of Candace Parker, right? And I think Caitlin Clark sets herself up to be obviously the next big name and to potentially, hypothetically, throw all that away for $5 million from Ice Cube, it doesn't seem worth it. And so that's why I don't think she would take this deal. Now, there are a couple options if I'm going to continue to rant. If she can use the $5 million as leverage and say, okay, I will play for you guys, but you're going to have to up it to X amount of dollars. You're going to have to give me a portion of the Big Three's brand, right? Like all the money that the Big Three pulls in, I need a portion of that, right? Somehow set up something with the WNBA so that other WNBA players are allowed to be invited or have to be invited to play in this league or have a women's Big Three. Like, if she wants to get creative with using this $5 million as a diving board for leverage to expand to a broader scope, then we can have a conversation about her joining it. But right now, a flat $5 million deal to play 10 games, I think it's just a lot of casuals sitting at home saying, oh, of course I'd take that $5 million. I'd never work again, right? Like, yeah, I wouldn't either. But that's not the point. She's already a millionaire. So those are my thoughts about this hypothetical, this conversation. I just think, in summary, Caitlin Clark has a lot more to gain by passing up this $5 million and potentially changing women's basketball and changing women's professional basketball than she is to just kind of secure a $5 million check. And here's what I'll also say, because I know this will be a conversation. If she goes to the Big Three and she gets locked up, right? The former NBA guards who are bigger than her, who are stronger than her, are able to shut her down. What's the narrative? Oh, Caitlin Clark's not that good. Oh, Caitlin Clark can't play with the boys. Oh, told you women were inferior to men. Like, that narrative continues to be perpetuated. And I think it's a pointless and worthless narrative to perpetuate in the first place. I think, obviously, I am a proponent of women's professional sports, the WNBA, Caitlin Clark, and what she does. And I don't think her worth as a human is only valuable as it stands up to men and former professional NBA men. Okay, so that's another narrative that's going, like, it's unavoidable. If she goes to the Big Three and she looks average, women can't. Oh, this is what happens when women think they can play. It just, she has that to lose. Okay, and I think it's sad. I think it's pointless. And if she does that and then she goes to the WNBA, who's going to watch her, right? Oh, I already saw her play against. I already saw her play against Baron Davis. Couldn't score on Baron Davis. I don't care if she can score on Stephanie Johnson, right? Like, it's just, for that reason, it's also just not worth it, in my opinion. So that is the Green Means Go breakdown, opinion, analysis, or lack thereof, of Caitlin Clark going to the Big Three. I don't think it's a good idea, and I don't think she will do it, and I don't think she should do it. I think she should go to the WNBA. She should be drafted first pick. She should go play with Leah Boston in former Rookie of the Year for the Indiana Fever. That's the other thing. She's so good right now. Imagine when she has teammates. Like, no disrespect to Iowa, but you know how many little layups were missed in that Iowa LSU game off of complete dimes? Complete dimes from Caitlin Clark? And that's not going to happen as much in the WNBA when she's playing with those teams. She's only going to get better, in my opinion. Well, the defense is better. She's going to get locked up. No, she's not. All right, she's not. So there you have it. There you have it. That is the Green Means Go stamp of opinion, of approval of Caitlin Clark denying this deal. I wish her the best. I hope that she continues to be successful. I hope she wins the championship and she goes on and lives out her dream in the WNBA. And I love you all. Drop a comment if you want to argue with me. That's fine.